I'd like to bring the meeting of April 29th, 2015 to order, and asking if anyone besides LCAT is recording this meeting.
Shirley Tancredi for the minutes.
Thank you. And we go to board reorganization.
Make a motion that we make John Mayberry the treasurer, Dan Burek second member, and Tom Wilson the third member.
I'll be the treasurer?
Treasurer. You
Second.
get to count the money.
Second member.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I think you meant chairman. What do you think?
I said, oh, I said treasurer?
Yeah.
Oh, I meant, oh.
I think I-
That's why I'm looking at you.
That's what I thought you were
That's,
getting me for.
you like counting money,
Ah,
yeah?
money's good.
Money's good.
Ah, I was wondering what you.
Okay.
All right.
So, yeah.
I was wondering why you were saying that to me. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you very much for your confidence. Moving right along, we approve the minutes of April 6th meeting.
You'll make a motion.
Make a motion to accept the minutes from the April 6th meeting.
Second?
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. And at this time, we'll get our superintendent's report.
Thank you. I'll try to keep it fairly brief today and give everyone else a chance, hopefully, to talk for a few more minutes than I speak. First item I want to do is to remind everybody that the annual town meeting is scheduled for May 18th at 7 p.m. And as the board members know, we're really down to the wire right now getting ready for annual town meeting, and I want to talk about a couple of those items.
Okay.
The first item is that there is a taping scheduled at LCAT with Jim Shields, the town moderator, scheduled for April 30th at 6 p.m.
I think I have that.
And it would be good for one of the board members to be able to be there to answer any questions that Mr. Shields might have as part of the taping.
What time is that?
6 p.m. on the 30th.
Tomorrow?
Tomorrow, correct.
Yeah, I have to, did he say what time?
6 p.m. is when they start.
All right, maybe I'll call him, because I do have to go to a wake, so I'll just see if I can make sure I don't sit there during the whole period.
Sure.
So, all right, I got it.
So in terms of town meeting activity, there's 3 articles that the Board of Public Works will be dealing with this year. The first article, and I did give the board a copy in your packet of the draft town meeting articles, which will be updated, particularly on the Chapter 90 article. Chapter 90, which is the state road funding article that is typically approved every year, has been updated, or will be updated to include the total amount of funds that the state is allocating through the fiscal 15 appropriation, the additional appropriation in fiscal 15, which is about a 50% add to what the town would have normally received in fiscal 15. That total fiscal 15 allocation is $872,000, excuse me, $872,628. Then adding to that is the pothole monies, which the town is receiving $87,263. And then this year, the legislature and the governor accelerated approval of the fiscal 16 monies, which is an additional $588,442. So adding all of that together, the article will be in excess of $1.3 million that will be on the town meeting warrant.
So
for
you're going to
approval.
give me a summary of some sort for tomorrow?
Certainly, yes.
All right. You can just email me something.
Okay. And the point to be made on that is when we take a look at what is allocated between fiscal 15, the additional fiscal 15, the pothole monies, and the fiscal 16 money, and the unspent monies that are remaining from fiscal 14, we have close to $2 million of Chapter 90 money that the town can use this year and next year, because again, the fiscal 16 monies will have to carry us through the next 12 to 15 months. But it's a significant amount of funds, and we believe we can make some significant improvements to the town's roads over the next year and a half.
Excellent.
So that is one article. The other 2 articles that the board will be,
And that's
Article 7, I
7,
believe.
right?
Yes. The other 2 town meeting articles pertain to the Water and the Sewer Enterprise Fund
Not to stop you, but this was already printed, so we'll be talking about a new one, or this hasn't quite been printed yet?
This was a draft. I haven't seen the final printed version, but.
So hopefully it'll be the
That's
number?
correct.
Okay.
Yeah, the town administrator's been advised of the correct number, and he's advised me that the printed version will include it.
Okay.
Typically, what happens is we get a final draft to review from the printer. That hasn't happened yet this year, so
Okay.
we still have one more chance, I believe, to make certain that that is the correct number.
Should be less confusion on the floor.
Right,
All
right.
right, cool.
So the next two articles, Article 8 and Article 9, will deal with the Water and the Sewer Enterprise Fund articles, and as we've talked about multiple times in the past, because the Water and Sewer Enterprise Funds are now funded separately as standalone expenses and revenue centers for the town, there will be separate articles for the Water Enterprise Fund and for the Sewer Enterprise Fund. And I did provide a copy of the article, which I believe will be the final article, because both myself and the town accountant have gone back and forth in this multiple times, and I believe we're both happy with the numbers that are presented here. What this article will do for the first and only time is it will take the unspent balances within the Water Revenue, Special Revenue Fund, and the unspent balances within the Sewer Special Revenue Fund, and move them into the Enterprise Fund in their entirety, and that will be then the starting balance of the Enterprise Fund. What the rest of the article pertains to is what is anticipated to be collected for revenue during fiscal 16 and what we anticipate to be expenses during fiscal 16. For the most part, the information that the voters will see at town meeting will be the same information they see historically, but in a different format. What they will see, though, for the first time is the expense side of the equation, what we anticipate to collect for revenue this year, which again, highly subject to change depending on what weather conditions are, how much water we sell, et cetera, how much water is used over the year. But that's our best estimate of what water revenue would be this year. The other thing that they'll see for the first time in both the Water and Sewer Enterprise Funds is that we have now set up a vehicle replacement reserve account so that monies can be set aside from revenue to fund future purchases of vehicles to support the Water and Sewer Enterprise portions of the DPW. And that is a line item that they have not seen in the past, but we have put into the budget this year and expect to carry forward in the future.
And these articles won't actually show the balance going forward?
The article will appear just as you see here.
Just like we see it?
Correct.
So it doesn't really show balances?
It doesn't show
It just
balances.
shows revenue and expense?
That's correct.
And where it's all coming from and going to? Okay.
For the first year, you will see the starting balance, because essentially that first line where it says, for instance, on the Water Enterprise Fund that moved $2.577 million of funds into the Enterprise Fund, that is the, I need you to think about this for a second.
That's the expenses.
That is the, good point. Yes, that is the expenses, that's correct. So it, yeah,
So
Lars,
we're
I
just gonna read it
misstated
like this, and
Correct.
if there's any support needed, a town accountant will help with
Correct.
whoever's presenting the article.
Right,
I mean, it's pretty straightforward, but if somebody raises a question, I just wanna make sure we're,
sure.
okay.
And I think, again, the point really to be made is that the information is here, that is being presented, has always been there. It's just now been consolidated and put into one place relative to the Water and Sewer Enterprise Funds,
Got
whereas
it.
before it appeared as part of the total town budget.
And again, this came from the recommendation of the auditors. It's the common standard practice that's happening
That's
many
correct.
municipalities across the state. We were just behind
Yes.
the ball.
Correct.
All right, so we're good. Are we gonna split these up, different readers, or do you guys have a preference?
You're the chairman now.
Yeah, do you want enterprise funds, or do you want me to grab them, or we got the chapter 90 one, right?
It's easy, and the other two are basically are easy, but they're really together. You do one and then the other one.
I
is
think
just
the other one's gonna
piggyback.
follow, so.
They just piggyback.
So you wanna do chapter 90, or you
I'll
wanna
do
do
it,
chapter
yeah.
90
I'll do
and then
chapter
do
90.
funds, or whatever?
You want me to do
Make a
chapter
pick,
90?
yeah. Yeah?
I'll do chapter 90.
All right.
But I think whoever does the water should do the sewer,
Right.
or whoever does the sewer should do the water.
You want them, or you want me to?
I don't care.
I don't either.
Doesn't matter. You wanna take them,
All right,
Chairman?
all right. So I'll take 8 and 9, and Tom will do 7.
And as we typically do, we'll prepare a standard article for reading at town meeting on the town meeting floor.
Sounds good.
So, and then,
Much like we did last year.
correct.
And we only have 3.
That's
that
right.
we're doing.
No street takings.
Not at this point, no. No, there were no street takings petitioned or requested at this point, so we.
Right.
The next item I had was a annual request that comes in every year from the J.C.'s relative to use of Veterans Memorial Field. They've sent a letter into the Board of Selectmen and DPW requesting use of Memorial Field. The carnival will be held from June 30th through July 3rd. As they typically do, they set up for the carnival a couple of days in advance of the 30th. So they're requesting access to the field beginning June 27th and then carrying through July 7th for breakdown and restoration of the field. Again, in the past, they've been very good at basically restoring everything back to original conditions over the couple of days following the fireworks event.
And they sent to Colin as well to figure out game schedules.
Correct.
Okay.
The fireworks are scheduled, just for information, for the July 3rd will be the fireworks, will be the last day of the carnival.
So we want a motion?
I'd recommend that.
Ask a motion that we agree to let the J.C.'s use the field. Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
The next item I had on my list was to update the board on the results of the Mass Department of Environmental Protection sanitary survey that was done on the town's water system. I did provide a copy of the full survey document to all of the board members. The survey really didn't contain any surprises. A number of the items we talked about in the field with a representative of Mass DEP, but I wanted to update you of where we stand on each one of the items. The first item they identified is that as a result of some issues that occurred in another community in Massachusetts a couple of years ago, they are requiring all water systems to build in a automatic shutdown of any manual overrides on chemical feed systems. So if our systems run automatically, they're automatically monitored, they're continuously monitored. If anything goes wrong, we receive immediate notification if anything goes wrong. But to test and calibrate the system, we have to override that automatic system by hand, just to put things in hand so we can verify the calibration of the operation of the pumps. What happened in another community was an operator did that and never put it back into automatic mode. So what the state requires now is that we essentially put a timer that prevents that from happening for an extended period of time. So it's basically a fail-safe measure so that even in manual mode, the system will shut down if it's left in manual for too long of a period of time to avoid any problems. That was a requirement of the sanitary survey, which we received, I believe it was on the 7th of April. The work was installed and completed yesterday, so the system is now in operation.
Awesome.
That was their highest priority item, and I believe they gave us to the end of the year to get that done, but we wanted to make certain, given the concern regarding it, that we got it done as soon as we could. The other item that they identified as a high priority item was to bring our cross-connection inspection system into compliance. That was actually done by the end of 2014, so by the end of last year, we were in full compliance with the state requirements. And then they have a couple of other items I'll touch on briefly. There's a need for us to update our emergency response plan to incorporate the new pumping station that was built a couple of years ago, the Harkness pumping station. So our emergency response plan needs to be updated, and we need to conduct training relative to that on an annual basis. They've given us to the end of this year to do that. I expect we'll get it done well in advance of that. They are requiring communities to take a look at their overall assets and estimate the useful life of their assets, and at least put on a piece of paper that we have a pumping station that's 50 years old and it may need to be replaced in 10 years or 20 years, or that type of analysis. And they've given us to the end of the year to do that, basically go through our water system infrastructure estimate the remaining life of that water system infrastructure, so we can start planning for that in the future.
Don't we have that in our capital plan, pretty much? Or is
We do that. Our capital plan is typically a 5-year look ahead. Many of these things will be many, many more years past 5 years. You know, a new pipeline that's put in the ground, you know, typically has a useful life of at least 50 to 75 years. So, you know, if we're putting in a new ductile iron water main, you know, we generally can assume that we're not going to have to touch that for a long, long time. Our capital improvement plan is really focused on the highest need areas in the relatively near future.
We were talking about the water system or the sewer system also?
Water system, the term sanitary survey is a term that applies to a requirement that the federal government, the EPA, actually requires states to go out and inspect all of the water systems within the state every 5 years. So we get this type of inspection report every 5 years. So these comments pertain solely to the water system. We had to put an additional label on one of our chemical storage tanks. We did that the next day. That was a very easy thing to do. One item that we're facing for the first time is that, and partly because our water storage tank, our new tank, is relatively new, so we haven't gone through the cycle before, but they require all water storage tanks to be inspected, both on the interior and the exterior, every 5 years. And they've given us, for this first cycle, until July of next year to complete that inspection work. That's typically done, you might wonder, how do you inspect the interior of the tank? It's typically done with the tank's full, because there's mobile robotic equipment that you can put into the tank that will, with camera equipment attached to it, and actually mechanical equipment that allows you can go in and take a sample of the paint and do other types of things robotically without actually having to drain the tank and take the tank out of service. So the inspection won't really have any impact on the operation of our system because it'll be done when the system is in full operation. And again, that'll have to be done before next July. And then the last item is one that's a short-term, really just a coordination item. They want us to have a conversation with primarily our plumbing inspector. You know, plumbing inspector is primarily the first line of defense many times when there's any modifications to plumbing systems. You know, you're required as a contractor to get a permit from the plumbing inspector. So in some cases, he is aware of changes that are made before we might be aware of those changes. So the state just wants to make certain that we have a good path of communication going back and forth between our cross-connection staff and the town plumbing inspector. So if, you know, when he's doing an inspection of a new facility or a modified facility, if there's something that might create a cross-connection concern, he makes our cross-connection inspector aware of it. Last item I want to talk about is something that is new to, I believe, most of the board members, if not all the board members. Several weeks ago, I was made aware, actually through the town of Long Meadow, that the State Gaming Commission had allocated to all the surrounding impacted communities, to the MGM casino, a construction mitigation fund. A fund they're allocating, and this is state money that's coming from the casino. It's not MGM money. It's actually money that the State Gaming Commission has in a pool to then allocate to communities as it's needed. The focus of this money is mitigation of construction-related impacts to communities. So it's really focused on impacts over the next couple of years as the casino is being constructed, and what those types of improvement, or what types of those impacts might be. You know, I think in our case, probably the most significant impact potentially is traffic impacts, particularly if you take the casino construction, you combine that with the deck replacement of I-91. You know, we may see a lot more traffic staying further to east, you know, to the eastern side, staying away from 91 as much as you can. So what the purpose of the contact I had from the town of Long Meadow was that they likewise have access to $100,000 to mitigate construction impacts. Over the years, prior to myself coming on board and after I came on board, we've had informal discussions about trying to do something with the Chestnut, Maple, Benton, Dwight, William Street intersection, and trying to minimally try to coordinate the traffic lights, maybe upgrade the traffic lights at that intersection. So what was mentioned to me by Steve Crane, the town manager in Long Meadow, is he sees some value to Long Meadow to potentially try to allocate those construction mitigation funds to doing an upgrade of the lights of that intersection, of the shared intersections. You know, we own about 25% of the property that those intersections are located. The southern portion of the Benton intersection, we own one of the two lights. Long Meadow owns the other light. So the thought is that this may be an opportunity for the two communities to work together to access the construction mitigation funding that the State Gaming Commission is making available to do some upgrades to those intersections to better move the traffic through those intersections. In East Long Meadow, those funds are under the control of the Board of Selectmen. Board of Selectmen has taken the lead on anything related to gaming activities and the MGM impacts. So if the Board of Public Works was interested in trying to access those funds to join with Long Meadow to possibly upgrade that intersection, I'd be looking for the Board of Public Works to express its support, to then allow myself and probably the chairman of the board to then go to the Board of Selectmen and ask the Board of Selectmen to allow us to request funding from the state for the purpose of a joint intersection improvement project. And I think the timing is good. I think it's something that we've wanted to do for some time. And I think there's, you know, the momentum may be there right now, that now's the time finally to do it, and there may be a source of external funding to do it as well.
I'd like to make a motion to advise the selectmen that we should engage with Long Meadow to synchronize the traffic lights in that intersection with these funds.
Second.
Any further discussion? Sounds like a plan.
Great.
All in favor?
Aye.
I have had discussions informally with Mr. Brower about this, and, you know, he advised me that the process to follow is to, you know, seek Board of Public Works support and then take it to the Board of Selectmen, and that, you know, he's been approached by Long Meadow as well, and everybody seems to think that this makes a lot of sense.
It makes the most amount of sense.
Okay. And with that, I'm done.
Okay.
Well,
All right, I've got a few items.
Do we want to do the line stripping now, or no?
Actually, I'll let,
What's left there for me?
You got that one, all right. Good to go.
So the line stripping, Frank got 3 quotes for the work. Markings Inc., Highway Safety and Fire, 4-year guidelines. The low quote was from Markings Inc. for $26,013.74. That includes all the roads. We didn't include, obviously, the roads as part of the road project. But we think we need that work. This is part of the RAP funding, so it needs to get done before June 30th. I'll talk about the RAP in a minute, but we'd like to ask recommendation to award this to the Markings Inc.
Okay, do you have a, I don't think I have one. Do it.
non-collusive.
Yeah, it's after the map, right after the map.
It's right after the map.
No,
Oh, no,
we need
actually,
a-
just
after.
it's
No, we need
earlier.
a conflict, no, no.
Yeah, I do have that here.
make a motion to award this contract to Markings Inc. for $26,013.74.
Second. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Next, I'll just give you, Bob mentioned it, but the Winter Recovery Assistance Program, as part of Chapter 90, we were awarded $87,263. We're looking, the line striping project, Potholes, which is ongoing. We spent, I think, close to $20,000 primarily in mix potholes all over town at various locations. So that'll be the second piece that we'll use the RAP funding to pay for. And then the third one is a crack sealing. We haven't put that up, but again, we're going to do some more crack sealing, about roughly 1/3 of the money from the RAP program. And again, that'll go out at the end of the week. Talk about the road project. I did include a figure, 11 by 17. It just shows you, I know we've talked about it in the past, but this gives you a good sense, shows you exactly where everything is located. There's really 5 locations as you look at Westwood, Maple Shade / Porter. We actually combined the 2 roads because it made sense to do that full stretch. Chestnut Street, Prospect Street, and Hamden Road. We did a coring program. I talked about, I think at the last meeting, we had 50 or 52 corings, I believe, and what we found was various thicknesses. There's a table in there that shows you that, and I think the kind of the takeaway from the table is that the thinnest pavement was on Westwood Ave, and the thickest was at Prospect Street, but it went from 4.3 inches on average to 8 inches on Prospect Street. In addition, we took gravel samples, and there were some locations where we seemed, particularly in the flat locations, we found some fines within the samples, so those are areas, and it made sense because we also saw problems on the surface of the road. So those are areas you'll see a correlation between where we're doing reclamation as part of the work and where we found problems with the gravel base. Let's see. We will be doing, as part of, once we award, it's out to bid right now, the road project will be awarded, or we'll receive bids on May 12th. As part of the work, we will do some additional cores just in the reclaim areas, just to confirm what we think we found from the initial cores, but that should be very quick at the beginning. One other thing I'd note on the map, you'll see the blue hatching, the blue segments are where we're doing the reclaim. There's 2 of them on Westwood Ave and 1 of them on Porter Road. And it's faint, but we've also shown subdrains. So in those areas, in particular, we'll include subdrains to help water get to the basins. We basically, Frank and I went out and did some additional topo just to confirm there are some areas in there where we're definitely, we've got puddling and there's very flat segments. So we'll obviously change the grade on the top and add subdrains to help the area and make sure that we don't have any additional problems in the future. I think that there's some berm work. One I'll point out is at the end of Maple Shade as you come to the Porter Pleasant intersection, right along the brook that runs along Maple Shade at Pleasant Porter. There's right now surface flow kind of runs down and runs over the bank. There's been some erosion in there. So as part of the project, we are looking to install berm on the east side of the road, starting at the Porter Pleasant intersection up Maple Shade Ave. And there's a couple other drainage. We did a full structure survey with John, and we got a look at every structure within the project limits, and we've basically added each of the structures for replacement as needed, and that's included as part of the work. It was great. They went out and did the work, and it was like 3-4 days, and they had all the structures identified and the condition assessment done. So that was good, and I'm glad we were able to do that ahead of time and really get a good handle on what we're doing for the project.
It was interesting in a couple of these reclaim areas where you get out there, and Dan got out there and shot the grade at, 25-foot increments or so, where we have some of our worst roadway sections, like in Porter Road, for instance. The main reason is because the road is flat. The water stays on top of the roadway, and when the water stays on top of the roadway, once the pavement starts to crack, the water works down through the cracks, the road starts heaving. So part of the solution is getting the water off the roadway. And the advantage that reclaiming provides for you, it's the most expensive way to go. Unfortunately, it's not as expensive as fully digging up the roadway and rebuilding it, but it's more expensive than just overlaying. But it does allow us to change the grade of the roadway by a few inches, and that's really all we need in some of those locations to get the water flowing to where it's supposed to be. It also allows us to take areas where historically, again, in some of these wet areas where the gravel has been contaminated over time by fine material that pumps up into the gravel as a result of the frost heaves. Every cycle it pulls fines into the gravel. By blending that pavement back into that underlying material, we're basically putting gravel back into the underlying material and building a much stronger base underneath there. So we're fixing that problem at the same time.
So that's what the fines is, it's just small particles?
Silt and clay.
Yeah. Material that's under the gravel, that as the roadway moves up and down with vehicle traffic and frost heaves, that water will move those fines up into the gravel, and over time the problem, it just keeps making itself worse, because the more fines you get in there, the more the road frost heaves. The more it frost heaves, the more potholes you get, the more water that goes into it. So it's a problem that becomes acceleratingly worse over time as a result of that.
And with cold patch, so basically you'll have potholes, you'll have cold patch, and that'll just fray up, and that'll slow the water down even further, and it'll just fill back into the pothole. So it's a continuing cycle. Let's see, so I guess that's a summary of that. So May 12th bidding, we're looking forward to, it's out, we're looking for Power Paving, Lane, and a bunch of general contractors, Ondricks. So we've gotten it out wide and hopefully get a good price.
And the budgets we've estimated right now are a little bit over half of what we have allocated with, current funds that we'll be voting on at town meeting this year. So we have a lot of funding left available to us to move in future directions over the next year.
Yeah, the roads really got hit this year, huh?
Yeah.
There's stuff everywhere.
There is.
Yeah, every community does the same thing.
Yeah.
I mean, the roads, it's just in there.
Is my memory any good? The Westwood down by the brook corner there, the sewer we had issues with there at one point, right? Storm drains or sewer? I think it was sewer.
It was sewer.
Are those all fixed?
By the
Do we-
tracks,
I thought it was kind of like near,
Franconia.
not Voyer, but whatever that other
Fisher,
street.
Fisher.
Well, Fisher, but come back a
Going
little
down.
bit, the opposite street, where Tony Fazio lived on that street.
Alpine.
we put
Wasn't there
like a
some
check
sewer-
valve in the manhole. There was, I don't think.
Do we need to go digging now before we
I
do
don't
this?
believe, I don't believe that, I think that was
It's all
corrected.
fixed?
That was corrected like
Yeah.
10, 12 years ago.
Yeah, it was,
Alright, I
it was a
just-
while back,
yeah.
yes,
Okay.
yes.
Right, it's just I remember there were issues there, and I didn't know if they were fixed, and if we're gonna do all this, do we have to go down and maybe do anything?
No, sir, I think that we're in good shape there.
Okay.
We'll certainly check.
It was like pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you're willing, there's one member, there's a gentleman here that wants to talk about Allen Street paving.
Okay,
If this is the time.
yeah, that'd be fine. I understand you might wanna talk about Allen Street paving?
Oh, that's mine, I had a question, but
Yeah.
I just explained to Brent,
Bob Parent, yep.
okay,
And your name is?
Joe,
Okay,
oh cutie,
okay.
you get a quarter if you can spell it.
I'll give you the quarter.
Let me
now.
try here.
Because of the unusual winter we had, and the only vehicle that used as part of my front yard was the mail carrier. And eventually, a little channel developed there, and ice came, and then when plows came, inadvertently, it dug it up. So now, at the mailbox, 5 feet on either side, the underlying layer of crushed stone is exposed, but it's on the edge. It's not in the middle. It's not in any way in the middle of the road. So I was just curious. At some point, I know it may be fixed. It's not a priority.
What number, Alan?
215 Allen.
Okay.
My general question, if I may ask,
Yep.
listening to great reports here, is that when a contract is developed with someone to do any repaving or fixing of any of the sore spots in town, are there clauses in there for work not being done up to code? Case in point,
Yep.
if a resurfacing without chopping up the road, you're gonna put a layer of macadam over,
Yep.
and then during the course of 4, 6, 8 months, it starts to pop. and
Like Converse Street. Yep.
You find out it wasn't an inch, that it's only half an inch, or 3/4.
I'll go to my experts here. How do we do contracts to kind of,
The selection of the solution is something, that decision is something that we make. We determine that based on the road condition, we have to go to the most expensive or the more expensive solution and do the full reclamation. If we had enough funds, we'd reclaim every street in town and would be good for the next 20 or 30 years. So we make those decisions. Once we make the decisions, though, it's our responsibility. Contractor has to comply with the contract documents, but it's our responsibility to oversee the contractor
Right.
and enforce those documents.
That's
So-
the only point, is the oversee, not that your recommendations to the contractor aren't legitimate. It's when what you have put down in paper, the contractor hasn't followed.
Right.
That was a major problem when they were building the Mass Pike
Right.
in 1958. Some of you guys weren't even alive. And 10
Close.
contractors, and there were lawsuits up the kazoo. And I see it on Congress Street
Right.
and some other places.
Right, and you have to inspect it, we have good contractors that bid on our work. Their staff don't always do everything that they would like them to do at all times, so we need to make certain that everything is
But
compliant.
you're on top of it.
Oh,
We
yeah,
are.
yeah.
As an example,
well-
on Elm Street last year, we had one of John's staff out there on a full-time basis during the full reconstruction of Elm Street, watching them continuously as things went.
Yeah, another point is on Chestnut Street on the hill where they did it, and there was a dip. And they came back and repaired it. We inspected it, we weren't happy with it. They came back, milled it out, fixed it, repaired it, so we
Thank you.
watch everything.
Thanks.
Okay. Good report, thank you.
Yeah, well, the only last thing I was gonna say, that manhole test and seal pre-construction, we have a pre-construction meeting scheduled May 11th, so that'll be starting soon.
Awesome.
And that, just for everybody's memory, is primarily focused on one of our larger pipelines that runs cross-country, essentially from the town hall up to a Stop and Shop. It's that line that runs along the brook, that we're gonna be focusing on some lining work as well as manhole rehabilitation work.
Mhm.
What's going on, because I got noticed being a property owner, and I saw we got it with Carlin Combustion, with the contamination flowing to the brook.
It's pretty bad.
Yeah,
Yeah, we're certainly aware of that, and we get notified, obviously, because the town owns property there as
Right.
well.
yeah.
It's my understanding that they are working towards a rehabilitation solution following the state requirements, but it's a long process. You know, and the state will ultimately require that the property owner who's responsible for the contamination, you know, cleans it up and meets state requirements. We're really we're kind of observing that right now more than anything else.
But it affected some of the town hall, or the field, the ball field, and, which doesn't really have any impact, but I guess the shopping center, the plaza has the most problem. We've had some air quality problem issues in there, and it's flowing to the river.
Yes, flowing primarily to northward to the
Right.
river. You know, the impacts are primarily within our road right-of-ways, where in fact there are some monitoring wells that we've allowed the contractors to place within to sample to confirm what the contaminant levels are. The little bit I understand about this is the contamination is largely fairly deep in the aquifer, that the contaminants, various types of solvents that may have been used many years ago, sort of drop down to the bottom of the aquifer, the bottom of the groundwater table, and those are what primarily are flowing towards the brook. In general, I don't believe it's a issue in the shallow portion of the ground, but it is a problem that will have to be addressed and is being watched, I believe, by the state to make certain it is addressed.
John, do you have something for us?
I do.
All right.
Well, you guys know, we talked last week, or at the last board meeting, about it being behind a bit. We have gotten caught up with the more serious road imperfections as far as milling and paving. Again, we had about a third of the money allocated to us from the pothole money for the roadway for blacktop, and we're spending it. The guys have done a great job. They've got a lot done. With the addition of the half dozen water breaks that the town had over a short period of time during the winter with the deep frost, it heaved the roads. There was a lot of settlement. We had to do a lot of additional road repairs, and a number of them were on main roads. So we were able to get caught up on those. We did not finish Fisher at the top of the hill. It was off the main road. So we do have work to do. But we did get to a place where we were able to pull some people off and start doing some structure repairs, which also fall into that category as far as road repairs falling under that same heading. So it's not coming out of our highway budget, which is a huge plus. Wow. And as well as getting into the ball fields. Now that's something that a number of people wanted us to do a little earlier. The Parks Department has done a great job getting out there, painting the fields, and doing a lot of work with a smaller crew than they might normally have. So we are getting caught up. I'd like to say that the roads that have been identified for paving and being paved are by far and away the worst. I think they've been at the areas that they have on this map identified. When those are paved and it's corrected, our roads are not going to seem like they do right now. They are again, by far and away the worst parts of East Lyme Meadow. It's like you go down Porter Road, you think, geez, I'd like to mill this huge area, but that's an area that's going to be paved. The same with Westwood and Prospect, and again, the taxpayers might drive through thinking, how can they let this stay like this? But they are identified, and those are the sections that are going to be overlaid or reclaimed and paved, and that will make a big difference. But we are getting caught up. Next week, we'll be getting into looming and seeding and spring cleanup from the winter. I know that's a big issue for a lot of residents, as well as doing some of the, I don't want to say minor blacktop, but the edges of the road, washouts, things like that have been put off so that we can get the travel lanes under control and in good shape.
Would it make sense for us to look at a bigger milling machine? Or
I think it would make it would go a little
I've
faster.
talked to the guys when they're out there watching, because, I mean, we've got quite a bit this year, and they said we've got this little tiny one, and just, it gets the job done, but I just don't know.
Dan, if I had a large blacktop company behind us paving the areas that we're milling, I'd say absolutely. But that milling machine can go faster than we can keep up with it if they were going steady. So a larger machine, it would be great to have, I guess. It's a very narrow swash, a very narrow, I don't know if it's more than,
Probably 2 feet,
yeah,
Yeah.
and it's,
30 inches maybe at the most.
again, and the machine's really working. It's a smaller machine, it's a Bobcat. It does a really good job, and those guys did a real good job with it. They didn't break any teeth in all the milling that we did over the last 2 or 3 weeks, and they really did a nice job. But again, if they continued to mill all day, we wouldn't be able to put blacktop down behind them enough to catch up with them. So I think that it's adequate
Okay.
for what we do here in East Long Meadow.
In some of the patches I saw, like on Westwood, they weren't much more than 2 passes wide with that machine.
Right.
So, yeah, I agree with
We
you.
were,
I mean,
we were able to box out that area without too much difficulty as far as
Yeah.
time spent and
Now, the end of Denslow down by Long Meadow, there were some really big, bad areas there.
yeah, and we did I'd say 80% of it. Certainly took the curse off it.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah, no,
And prolonged the life of that road.
yeah.
It's interesting with the state providing the pothole money this year. They're allowing us to spend money in areas that they historically haven't. Typically, in order to get reimbursement for any pavement work, you have to be paving at least a 200-foot-long section. So these spot type repairs that we're doing this year through the pothole money, they normally would not have funded. If the same funding is available next year, we may be doing more of this, but if it isn't, we may be doing quite a bit less of it. It's just, it was the right thing to do at the right time, I think.
Mm.
Excellent.
I think that's about it.
Thank you. Bruce, do you have any building manager report information for us?
Oh, sure.
All right.
Few items for the board this evening. Quick update for our vehicle maintenance program. We've completed over 31 preventative maintenance services up to date, along with 8 state inspection stickers. We do have 1 truck that's left over from March, but it's got some significant work that needs to be done, which is truck 10. So we're kind of holding off on doing that service. We'll probably, we park the truck in the back and wait until July 1st. It's not a critical piece of equipment that we need right now. And then we have 2 services left over for this month to complete. So everything is right on track as far as our maintenance program.
What is truck 10?
Truck 10 is a L8000, I believe.
It's one of the big ones.
Yeah, it's an older one. I don't know the exact year.
Yep.
But yeah, it's an L8000 dump truck, 1996.
What needs to be done to that?
I have that on my Google Sheets program here. If you were asking.
Says everything.
Well, skeptical of dumping too much more.
So, it needs a fuel tank cradle, muffler brake and brackets, 2 of those, drag linkage, king pins, and bushings. So total comes up to about $3,200 in repairs.
So nothing too crazy, just a bunch of little things.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll get to it, and depending on what we have left over for monies, we're trying to stay on track with service. And as that goes, I am working on a big giant spreadsheet to figure out our preventive maintenance costs for each vehicle per year, and how many times we do those services, come up with an actual dollar figure, what we're gonna need to spend for our preventative maintenance. program.
Awesome.
So,
That's
moving
huge,
forward.
that's huge.
Yeah, so the only portion I'm waiting on, one of our mechanics is out, is trying to get all the heavy pieces of equipment finalized, what materials needed for those inspections, and then kind of bring it all down and actually get a dollar figure assigned to that preventative maintenance and kind of.
And it's gonna be allocated between the 3 departments.
Exactly, so
Water,
we're
sewer,
gonna,
and highway.
yeah, so once that's done, then I'm gonna kind of get into the work order system, kind of see where we're spending money, maybe kind of average that, and then we can kind of put this with that and see actually what we need to spend on vehicle maintenance and repairs, and kind of see where we're at. I mean, there may be a big giant number, but maybe we can, bring it back and just, so we'll know moving forward if we need to put more money into vehicle maintenance.
Right.
I think we're gonna be looking at that, because we're not getting the new vehicles that we
Right.
used to getting because of the budget cuts.
Right. As of right now, I've come up with an estimate of just $23,404. And that doesn't include the heavy equipment, some of the heavy equipment items, but not all of it.
And that's primarily filters, fluids.
Yes, exactly.
Expendable,
And that's for a single
Maintenance
service.
items.
This isn't day-to-day stuff, topping off fluids or anything else, so. And also along with that, that's for 2 services per year. So in some of these vehicles, I haven't even like truck 11 and 13 with that diesel emissions equipment
DPF.
on there, you're supposed to do that every other month. So I gotta take that dollar figure and times it by, say, 6. So just for example, that vehicle alone is $236.99, so I gotta times that by 6 times per year.
The key is it allows us to set some priorities, and we may have to say, here is a
Yeah.
mission-critical piece of equipment, we need to make certain it's in top running condition all the time.
Right.
If we don't have adequate budget, there might be some equipment that we use on an infrequent basis, and we say, okay, we're gonna be willing to let that sit a little bit more.
Sounds good.
Okay, other item, the high school tennis court lights, we had the New England Utility Services come in on April 22nd, install all the 8 lighting fixtures, the new Musco lighting fixtures at the tennis courts. Due to our preparation and preparedness, actually with the DPW staff, we saved about $600 on the installation cost, because it only took us 5 hours versus 10 hours. We had everything ready, assembled, prepared, so New England Utility Services gave us a $600 credit towards that installation. Steve had some work orders to complete this week. We'll be out there next week running wires, pulling wires, and hopefully by the end of next week, we'll be firing the lights up. And just a reminder, I know I've told you a few times, May 16th is their grand opening ceremony. That's a Saturday.
And one thing we're doing on the lights, to make certain we try to be as efficient as we can, is Bruce is installing timers on these lights.
Yes.
Will, basically it'll be a 1-hour timer or something like
1
that.
hour, hour and a half. I'll talk with Sam Pezzanelli, the tennis association director, I guess you could say, and try to figure out how long does a tennis match take, so somebody's not over there turning them on, waiting for the lamps to warm up, especially with the type of heads that are on there.
Or they go home and they forget to turn the lights off, and the lights
Yeah.
are burning all night,
Yeah.
that condition
Yeah.
won't be able to exist.
How does it work at the field?
The field is
It's been-
actually, there's an application that you can have for your phone. It actually, you can turn it off and on by that, which the school department actually has. This new setup doesn't have that.
It's been a few nights I've gone by there a little bit late with 0 activity, wondering,
Yeah, so it's one of those things where, somebody's not monitoring. The school department directly controls the on-off status of the stadium lights. So.
kind of wondering, I don't know if this was far-fetched or not, but if to put a motion detector shooting right down the field or something, and if there's no motion for 45 minutes or an hour, see you
Yeah,
later, I don't
and
know.
I'll follow up with RJ.
Is there anything we could do to just make sure they don't
Let
burn
me
till
see
1 in
what
the
the
morning?
protocol is. I know a custodian goes out, sets up, he turns on the lights, goes back, maybe a half hour before, I'm not sure.
Right.
But yeah, let me,
I mean, my assumption would be it's not intentional, You
Yeah.
know, lacrosse thought soccer was coming after them, or soccer thought football
Right.
was coming after them, so they left the lights on, and
Right.
for whatever reason, they canceled that practice that night, and now whoever was gonna do what they were gonna do didn't get it done. So I just wonder
Yep.
what can be done to not have those things burning at 11 o'clock at night or
Yeah.
12 o'clock at
Or
night.
maybe I can get that application and I can actually view that, and if the lights are on, let me know that they're on, and so, yeah,
Yeah.
I'll follow up with RJ on that.
I think on the tennis courts, it's low tech, but it's effective, it's fail-safe.
Ex-
You know, you turn the switch to an hour, and
Those are
you can't run any more than an hour.
Exactly,
Right.
so we,
Until the
yeah.
timers get old and stick.
Yeah.
And then you replace them, but it's inexpensive.
Switch
I
maintenance.
mean-
Yeah, yeah. So, yeah, I'll follow up.
I mean, then at very least, is it real to say anybody's gonna be there after midnight?
Right,
That's what I
So,
was just saying.
if
Let
nothing
people know
else,
it's up to
they go off at midnight,
yeah,
and nobody has to worry about anything. So
Right.
maybe they burn for a couple hours, but at least,
right. Because I know, like I said, I've actually looked at the control panel over there. It's in an auto state, so I believe, like I said, it's an application on an iPad, iPhone, that they turn them on and off based on the
Okay.
usage of the field, but I will check into that.
You know, part of the issue is that you have a lot of different types of people that use that field.
right,
Some
well, that's
are
the
very
thing. I don't think it's
sophisticated, some
intentional.
aren't, and-
You know, happens at my building. You know, somebody thinks somebody's coming back, they're not coming back, they didn't lock the door, they didn't do this, they,
Exactly. Couple other things, our Birchland Drive-It system, I am working with Tim Murphy Architects on that project. A little behind in that project, getting some bid documents, but we are getting on track. I got a rough bid phase is roughly May 19th to June 10th. Contract award roughly around June 11th to June 19th. Construction start date around July 6th to August 28th. It's an 8-week estimated construction project. It's outside, it's really not gonna impact anything with inside the building, so pretty confident we're gonna get that done.
You gonna be able to get a company to come in with that quickly, once they did it, to get in there and get it? or-
I'm hopeful. Tim Murphy's, the architect, has reached out to local vendors to make sure that, obviously, people that are available. So moving forward, we'll
That's a short
be
window.
reaching out.
Hopefully- Hopefully they would be busy, I mean.
Well, exactly, and
Yeah.
that was one of the questions that was brought up today. So, yeah, we'll be looking forward. Worst case scenario, this work can be done later into September if need be, based on the.
Yeah, but I mean, the premature failure is caused by doing it too late in the
Freezing,
season.
well, absolutely, I will
Yeah.
make sure that the temperature is right, or postpone the whole thing if need be, but
Right.
I'm pretty confident
It
we'll,
just seems like it's kind of, those guys should have all their work, they should be filled for the next 6 months at least.
Right, exactly. So, it's not really that large of a project. There's just some designated areas. The worst part is over the cafetorium area. It's where it's actually delaminating, so that's really the majority of the work is. A lot of the other areas are just control joints and coping and caulking that needs to be addressed.
They're
So
gonna
they can-
resurface the whole,
No, not the whole building. There's
No.
only certain areas.
certain areas?
Yeah, like the whole front of the building is in good shape.
Right.
And it's just certain areas which, when they applied it incorrectly, I guess you could say, or under the poor weather conditions.
Right.
So, next item on my list, I got the Pine Knoll Pool startup. We're gonna get up there. We've been up there recently, the past few weeks, investigating the pool. The pool is held up well.
Hope so.
We've removed some debris up there, but we plan on getting up there the week of May 11th to start our preparations, cleaning up, going through the buildings, electrical systems, cleaning off roofs, cleaning the pool. Hopefully, like I said, it should be a little more short-term as far as maintenance and startup, just because of the new pool, and we don't have to concrete half the pool and chip out things and everything else. So we're gonna be up there starting, like I said, May 11th, and get the place going. And hopefully, I've talked to Colin yesterday, that we'll probably start up the pool and everything roughly around May 25th or so. That's all I got.
okay, thank you very much. Any other business? Schedule another meeting?
If it would work for the board, I might suggest the 13th. That would allow us to have bids in on the 12th, and most likely, the contractors that did that job will be very well-known local contractors we've worked with before, so I don't think it'll take us a lot of time to turn that around.
Works for me.
Works for me.
5 o'clock here,
What day?
May 13th.
May 13th,
Wednesday.
Wednesday.
May 13th. PM.
We'll be together anyways that day,
Right.
or not, depending on how good it goes, right? I'm good. So at this point, we're going to adjourn into executive session for the purposes of collective bargaining and contract.
Just gonna ask for a motion.
So moved, yeah. Yeah, so moved.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Who are you?
Thomas Morrison.
Can't be right, guy.
John Mayberry, aye.